Hello everyone, welcome to Here We Go. Let's continue to talk about how to respond to wrong approach moves. This video will focus on the 3-4 point because in the last video, lesson 414, we talked about how to respond to wrong approach moves to the start point. So if we turn on the AI, we're going to see AI suggesting the small knights approach and the one space jump. So normally for human players, we would say all of these moves are acceptable. But for AI, it's really just A, B, and C. For AI, D and E are a little too far from the corner, where it makes it too easy for white to guard the corner. Or you can say D and E doesn't put enough pressure on the 3-4 point. So all of these are plausible explanations on why AI doesn't like D and E, but I think for beginners and lower level amateur players, D and E are perfectly fine. You don't want to play a complicated variation on the corner. But as you grow stronger as a player, you should play A, B, and C more. Because according to AI, these are better moves that challenge white's grip on this corner. So let's turn on the AI again. Let's talk about some of the so-called wrong moves. This move right here, it's not a terrible move. White still has to respond on the corner. And the best response seems to be this, right? So this is fine. The AI is suggesting that black play away. If white plays here, then this is about even, right? This is about even. So, and 4 and 6 is a really solid shape, right? The corner is entirely white's. Black cannot come in and live here. But number 5 is on the 4th line, so it doesn't really fear an attack by white, at least not immediately, because black can always jump towards the center, play this move that kind of keeps white here on the 3rd line, right? So black is not worried about being attacked. Yeah, so that's number 5. I think it's perfectly fine for players to play, but AI doesn't really like it. And now this large knights approach. AI also doesn't really like it, but the points difference is not huge. It's about a 2.5 percentage point drop for black, which is totally fine for beginners and lower level amateurs. So if your opponent approaches this way, you should just play this, right? 4 and 6, once again, very solid shape, already alive. And for most amateurs, black would just extend here on the 3rd line. And this is perfectly fine. It used to be a joseki. Of course now, because AI says this is not great, or at least this favors white a little bit, professional players don't really play this anymore. But I think for amateur players, this is perfectly playable for both sides, right? White has this solid corner, and black has established a base on white's side of the board, right? So I think both sides can be satisfied by this old joseki. So that's number 5. These two are perfectly fine. But if you play farther away, right, these are not okay. Right? This one, white has a corner closer like this. This is really comfortable for white and more efficient for white to build this shape. And black really can't challenge the corner now. So number 5, if you play 3 spaces apart from number 4, it's not a good idea. Similarly here, it's even farther, right? If your opponent plays here, you just play the corner closer. Plenty of space to play the corner closer. So 6 is the right move. Now let's talk about the 2nd line for just a little bit, because we talked about why you shouldn't play on the 1st and 2nd lines. Of course, 1st line never makes any sense at this stage of the game. And the 2nd line is too low, too inefficient, and too slow, right? If you can place your stones on the 3rd or 4th lines, you should do that in the opening. So if you do this, this is terrible, right? You can see this is almost a 20 points drop for black. Talking about percentage points here. So this is terrible. White will just play here. And now AI is saying, don't even try to live on the corner, right? If you want to live, you can. Something like this, right? But this is too inefficient, right? Black's 4 stones just surrounded about 6 points here on the corner. So this is too inefficient. This is something you as a beginner should know, right? You should learn these various patterns, and if you see this pattern, you should be able to judge and say, hey, this is too low, too inefficient for black, because black is all on the second line, and it only has about 7 points. What about here? It's similar, right? AI is just saying you should just keep your opponent on the second line if you can. Now the AI is saying, get away from this. Of course, black can play something like this. White will just, yeah, this is not playable for black, right? Black is like too low on the corner. All of these stones are extremely inefficient, whereas white has potential toward the side and toward the center, and black is barely alive. So this is not acceptable for black. And of course, if your opponent plays this, you should be very happy, right? To keep your opponent on the second line and enclosed in this corner. This, similarly, right? This diagonal move could be good. And this is already bad for black, as you can see, right? Also, don't engage. You don't have to play this Hane here. Don't engage. That's what AI is telling us to do. And this number 5 now really doesn't do anything. It is an endgame move, right? It's like trying to gain all the small points on the side, and it's extremely inefficient. What about this? The AI is basically saying just play something normal like this. And this exchange already favors white by a lot, right? This is a 10 percentage point drop for black. And this is even worse because this is farther from the corner, right? So white can do a corner closer like this. So if your opponent plays on the second line, just keep it on the second line and ignore it. Like if you play on the second line, it's already a big disadvantage. So hopefully this lesson and the previous two really drive home the message for you that you should really not play on the second line in the opening, except for some josekis that you'll learn about. But you should never play on the second line unprompted. Moves on the second line, even in josekis, can be bad, as we'll see in the next chapter. So really try to avoid the second line. And this helps your positional judgment as well, right? If I give you a pattern where one side has a lot of stones on the second line, whereas the other side has most of its stones on the third and fourth line, then you should be able to reliably tell, especially in an opening pattern, that the side that has too many stones at the second line is probably not doing so well. And you should use the same judgment for your own games. So lastly, let's talk about playing on this side, right? So now we're saying number 4 is facing downward, right? This direction, number 4 is facing downward. Of course, white can play here as well, right? This 3-4 point, we would say is facing black. It's facing the right side, like this. So this is facing downward, and the only approach moves is this and this. Before AI, some human players would play something like this, right? And it's easy to respond, right? White can just play a corner closer. And in the past, black would play something like this. But this is really disfavored now, as you can see, the percentage point difference, because black really isn't putting any pressure on the white group. White has territory. White can come in here later in the game, not now, later in the game. So white is alive. White is not worried about being attacked, and white is pretty comfortable here. And black's 5 and 7, I mean, it occupies the upper side, but it doesn't guard all the territory, and it's probably not the best way to develop on the upper side. So that's why it's disfavored, but it's still playable, I think, for amateurs. But of course, if you play this, you should know that you're not challenging the corner territory. You're just giving away corner territory like this. If black plays even closer to this, I think it's about the same, right? So white can make a corner closer pretty comfortably. And if black plays elsewhere, then in the future, white might be able to pincer and attack this black stone. So playing on this side, probably not a good idea because white can always just make a corner closer. I think that's the main takeaway. And if we play the attachment, we should play at the start point, right? This is still about even, right? This is about even. And this will be a joseki. Right? This will be a joseki that we'll discuss in the next chapter. So number 5 is fine, but not the other moves, right? If you attach here at the 3-3 point, then this is too low, right? Once again, white can keep black very low. And of course, this is not a good move because this will give white the 3-3 point. White is most likely already alive, and black can't really do anything to these 2 white stones here, right? It can't really attack, and black might be under attack as well. It's kind of bumped up against white's wall here, so it's really hard for black to make any subsequent moves if it plays at number 5 because it's too close to number 4. So I think I covered all the possible approaches to the 3-4 point. Of course, we'll go into more detail in the next chapter about all the josekis that stem from this 3-4 point. But I think for now, just remember how to respond to the wrong approach moves, and you'll do great as a beginner. As always, thank you for your support. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.